Jade Cargill done with AEW. There's some injury updates on Scorpio Sky and Kofi Kingston. A notable free agent was backstage at AEW Collision last night, and Dominic Mysterio gets a neck tattoo. Hello and welcome to the Soul Sunday News here at What Culture Wrestling. Myself, Andrew Pollard. I hope you're doing well. Right, let's dive straight into things and straight into Jade Cargill's AEW status. Now, Jade Cargill has not been seen on AEW programming since dropping the TBS title, I think it's a TNT title there. TBS title to Chris Statlander at Double or Nothing back in May. There has been some kind of rumblings about what is next for Jade. She's been out there on social media, on Twitter, to kind of basically throw some questions up about her future as well, as to whether she may return to wrestling or whether that is it and she's done. Now, Dave Meltzer, speaking on the latest episode of the Wrestling Observer Radio, has noted that Jade Cargill is considering not coming back, is the words used here. She wanted to take some time off after the run she's been on. Going back to, 2021 when she joined AEW. Of course, Jade had no wrestling experience prior to that. She turned up. There was the rivalry with Cody Rhodes, Shaquille O'Neal involved. Brandy Rhodes got swapped out for Red Velvet. That was her first ever match. And then from there was the 60-0 undefeated streak, which was brought to an end at Double or Nothing by Statlander, who returned from injury at that point. That coming after Jade had already beaten Taya Valkyrie in that night. So there is a storyline there ready for Jade if she does want to come back. The fact that, yes, Statlander beat her, but it wasn't exactly, a very... I mean, it was a clean finish, but it was a little bit... It's not an ideal way to frame a babyface, I thought at the time, where Statlander comes back and takes advantage of a situation. But hey-ho, that story's there. Also with Jade as well, you've got to think that she's been kept away from a couple of big name players in the AEW Women's Division. Britt Baker, Jamie Hayter, Toni Storm, Saraya, Hikaru Shida. They're just some of the people who she's not tangled with yet, Jade. So there's so much more for her to do if she does indeed return to AEW. But right now, there seems to be some, significant question marks about Jade Cargill's AEW status. Someone else as well whose current AEW status there's question marks about is Scorpio Sky. Now, Scorpio Sky recently returned to our screens after a year. Actually, to be specific, a year and 2 days away from action. Now, it was one of those weird situations with Scorp. There was no real reports of an injury. I know early on during his absence, there was rumblings of maybe a mild, I think it was an ankle injury or knee injury, but not enough to keep him out of action for the amount of time he was kept out of action until he returned at AEW Collision earlier this month against Action Andretti. Now, unfortunately, Sky was pulled from last week's Rampage where he was supposed to take on Kip Sabian. He was replaced by Commander in that match, and Scorp was replaced in that match due to injury. Now, Sean Ross Sapp over at Fightful Select during a Q&A session has given a little bit of an update on Scorpio Sky, to say it was a freak accident is what the injury, or how the injury occurred. What the injury is itself is not known, although Scorpio Sky was spotted on crutches, and it's not known how long he's going to be out of action for. So hopefully it's nothing too serious for Scorpio Sky, because hugely talented fella just got back onto TV. A Collision is a show that's kind of given a spotlight for him. It's allowed Miro to get some, be back on TV. Andrade El Idolo as well. It's a show that's starting to... You can see the benefits of having another 2 hours of television when you're using it the way that you're using it for AEW Collision. So, yes, hopefully Scorpio Sky's not out for too long. But somebody else on the other side of that who should be coming back soon is Kofi Kingston. Now, this was during the same Fightful Select Q&A. Sean Ross Sapp noted that he was told that Kofi wasn't supposed to be that far off from returning, and that was said to Sean a week or two ago. So, Kofi Kingston should hopefully be back in action sooner rather than later. Now, Kofi has been out of action since, March, just before WrestleMania this year, when he injured his ankle. Drew McIntyre dove over the top rope, landed on Kofi. Kofi's ankle didn't do too well, and he's been out of action since. So hopefully Kofi Kingston is back soon. It sounds like during this question as well that was put to Sean Ross Sapp was asking about Kofi and Big E. Now with Big E, he just gave the answer of basically it's unknown right now whether he will return at all, which is something we've been hearing for a while. Big E himself, just a couple of weeks ago on a podcast appearance, said that he's feeling great. His neck's basically 100%, but he does not know when or if he'll be able to return to the ring. Now, Big E, in his case, it was March of last year. He got injured, broke his neck. Such an awful injury, but The main thing is Big E's feeling good in terms of day-to-day life, because this was an incident that it was very open at the time, saying that this could have resulted in paralysis or even death. It was a very major deal. So hopefully Big E is just enjoying life. If he gets to wrestle again, fantastic. If he doesn't, just so long as he's healthy in his day-to-day is the main thing there. Now, another AEW story, and Richard Holliday was spotted backstage at AEW Collision last night. Now, some of you may not know Richard Holliday. He's a really good talent, and he's got a lot of previous with Maxwell Jacob Friedman. Now, this goes back to Major League Wrestling, to MLW, when Max was in there. There was a faction called the Dynasty, which was MJF, which was Richard Holliday, and was Alex Hammerstone, Old Hammer. Now, Holliday and Max actually won the MLW tag team titles as well together. So there's plenty of history there. Should Richard Holliday end up in AEW, he was backstage last night at Collision, which was in Hartford, Connecticut. Now, he is local to the area, so maybe it's just a case of popping in to see his old friend Max. Maybe it was there to talk a little bit more about other stuff, because Richard Holliday is a free agent and one of the hottest free agents in the game, in my eyes. Having seen the Dynasty back in MLW, they were great. There was a really cool ongoing feud rivalry between them and the take on the Hearts they had was Brian Pillman Jr., Davey Boy Smith Jr., and Teddy Hart, whose name I nearly forgot there for a second. How can you forget Teddy Hart? But yes, point being, Richard Holliday, very, very talented. Richard Holliday, very, very much a free agent. And Richard Holliday, very, very much healthy and back in the ring. That being because, unfortunately, he announced back in September that he was battling stage 4 Hodgkin's lymphoma. Thankfully, he did announce, I think maybe 2 months ago, that he is in remission now, that is, and he returned to the ring last month. So Richard Holliday looking to get his career back on track after, obviously, a extremely serious health situation, and this is someone as well who WWE is said to have interest in. Now, there's options on the table clearly for Richard Holliday, and wherever he ends up, he would be a great get for any promotion. Also, somebody who'd be a great get for any promotion right now, because he's killing it on our screens, is Dominic Mysterio. Yes, Dirty Dom, who this weekend, to go with his mullet, to go with his cowardly ways, to go with his underhand ways of cheating to win matches, he's now got a tattoo that literally says villain, and it's on his neck. He's going the Cody Rhodes route. Now, having a neck tattoo doesn't necessarily mean you're a bad guy, but the fact that Dominic's tattoo just says Villano going down his neck, which translated from Spanish simply means villain. Not to be confused with the Villanos of WCW fame in the 90s, also seen in AAA and CMLL. No, this is Dominic Mysterio embracing his villainous side. Of course, Dominic, man, he's absolutely killing it. He will be in action later tonight. NXT Great American Bash will defend the North American title against Wesley and Mustafa Ali, which should be, there's a lot of ingredients there to make that a fun match, especially you'd imagine Rhea Ripley will be there as well, and Rhea, again, just absolutely killing it. Now, this tattoo, I should say, it was Oscar of Valdam Inc. On Instagram, so you go and check it out there, or you can go to whatculture.com, and there's pictures of it all on there as well. Right, let's get to your questions. We've got some a few here I'm going to try and burn through relatively quickly. Hector Garcia III got in touch. Hey, Hector. An early happy solo Sunday. Yes, this was sent a couple of days ago. On Wednesday, WWE posted who is the most brutal superstar in WWE history. I'm including all content they own now, and I say Bruiser Brody. Who do you pick? Also, Bruiser versus Brock. Who wins? Bruiser versus Brock. I was going to say Brock wins that one, because Bruiser Brody, I mean, he'd do a job if he was getting paid for it, but then so will Brock Lesnar. Brock Lesnar is very accommodating in that way, as in if you pay him a truckload of money, he will do absolutely whatever you want him to do. So, I mean, if we're talking a shoot fight, you'd have to say Brock Lesnar, but I don't know, you can't rule out Bruiser Brody. And in terms of the most brutal superstar in WWE history, if you're counting, footage and companies that they now own, Bruiser Brody's in there for sure. But then if you're talking brutal, how are we approaching this in terms of their on-screen portrayal? Are we going, legit? Because then you've got someone like Ken Shamrock, you've got someone like Steve Blackman, you've got someone like Brock Lesnar, Ronda Rousey, Shayna Baszler, these people with the legit shoot backgrounds. Dolph Ziggler, man, that's a name you probably didn't expect to hear. I remember there was an interview with Randy Orton a couple of years ago, and he said, basically, who's the hardest in the locker room, which you can take a couple of different ways. But yes, and his answer was Dolph Ziggler. Just if it was like a shoot fight, he would be the guy who would just beat everybody. Obviously, again, an amateur background there with Dolph. So I'm going to go Bruiser Brody's in there. Dark Side of the Ring recently featured Abdullah the Butcher. Obviously, there's a lot of Abdullah the Butcher. Well, not a lot, but there's some Abdullah the Butcher footage on the WWE network from promotions that Abby worked in that now are owned by WWE. So he'd be in there. The original Sheik, Sabu, just crazy. I'm going to go Kenny. I'm going to go Ken Shamrock, though, just because, hey, I'm a big Ken Shamrock mark, so any chance to let's get him in there is all good by me. The Tribal Fiend has got in touch. Morning, Tribal Fiend. Happy Sunday morning. What do you think about WWE having Brian Pillman Jr. debut in a tag team with Tyler Breeze in either NXT or SmackDown? They'd be a perfect match and gives him, as in Brian Pillman Jr., time to get used to the company and shines a light on the underused Tyler. Now, for those not aware, Brian Pillman Jr. seems to be on the cusp of signing with WWE. He was spotted at the Performance Center earlier this month, departed AEW a month or two back, where just his contract just naturally expired and it was not renewed. Both parties are said to be, it was an amicable split. They're on good terms. The door is very much open should Pillman Jr. return to AEW at any point, or they'd be interested in returning. But yes, as it looks like Brian Pillman Jr. is joining WWE, would I want to see him and Tyler Breeze as a tag team? I mean, it could very much work. I think Brian Pillman Jr., though, right now, we've seen him in a tag team with, whether it's the Varsity Blondes with Griff Garrison or whether it's with Brock Anderson. And I think with Brian Pillman Jr., I'd like to see him just with a single spotlight on him. I talked earlier on about his time in MLW, where he was great with as part of basically a new take on the Hart Foundation. But for me, I'd like to see a single spotlight on him. But him and Tyler Breeze together could be very interesting. Tyler Breeze, who is kind of still employed by WWE because he does the up, down, down stuff. So he has a contract with them, but he does not wrestle for them. He did return to the ring, though, earlier this month on the indie scene. So it's not the worst idea. It's not the worst idea. And also, man, I so miss Tyler Breeze's original NXT theme where you just see his feet walking and there was just this tune on a loop. Oh, absolute banger. Right, Mark Soller's got in touch. Hey, Mark. Morning, Cultured Left Peg. That'd be me. What is your Mount Rushmore of wrestling promo packages? Oh, that's a tricky one for a Sunday morning. I got My Way with Rock versus Austin. Nailed on that one. Monster with Daniel Bryan. Hate Me Now with The Miz and Cena. And Cody versus Dustin in AEW. Hashtag this is the news. And also a nice Ethan Page gift there. Always good to see All Ego. Yeah, Rock versus Austin WrestleMania 17 is the number one. There is no other number one. That is number one. Daniel Bryan, the monster one that had a WrestleMania 30, I probably would include that. CM Punk and John Cena at Money in the Bank 2011. Some of the stuff they did with Bayley and Sasha in NXT. Some of the stuff they did with Gargano and Ciampa in NXT. The Shield, the triple threat face-off of the Shield at Battleground 2016. I guess I'm not the biggest fan of the fella, but Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker, some of their matches had great promo packages together, as did Shawn versus Flair at WrestleMania, the retirement match. Shawn versus Hogan as well, SummerSlam. There was a lot. That was fun. That was entertaining. And then, yeah, Cody versus Dustin. That's one that was brilliant. That set the tone so much. That rivalry was great. The promos both guys did, the video packages, the match itself. I would say to this day is probably both man's best match. Dare I say? I don't know, some of the Cody and Seth matches, but yeah, it just phenomenal stuff. MJF and CM Punk as well. Some of the video packages for that. What else have we got? I guess Becky Lynch on her way to becoming the man ahead of WrestleMania 35 from the tail end of the year before into WrestleMania 35. Some of her stuff was great. Jericho and Michaels, their feud the second time around. The Bloodline, there's a lot of great video packages that have been involved in that, particularly Sami Zayn and building up to Elimination Chamber. Even, the Royal Rumble as well this year as part of that. Yes, in Impact, Mickey James, some of the stuff they did there with the last rodeo before she unfortunately got injured. There was some great stuff there. So I can't nail it down to Mount Rushmore, but I will say Austin versus Rock WrestleMania 17 is number one, of course, because of course it is. Andrew Everything's got in touch. All In is 4 weeks today. Yes, it is. And I still don't know a single match I'm going to see from the past week's TV. What do you think will be on the card? OC versus Mox, MJF versus Punk or Cole, CMFTR versus Stronger Better Than You Baby. I like that name. Roderick Strong involved there. Kenny versus Takeshita. Is Jericho turning Don down and being killed by Will, as in Ospreay? Yes, Andrew. There's a lot of people that feel your pain, as in we're a month away. This time in a month's time, I will be in London getting ready to go to Wembley Stadium. But yes, not a single match has been announced. Same just after that. I mean, literally 1 week after that is All Out, another massive pay-per-view. It's going to be a fine balancing act. Yeah, I think that's the thing. I was going to say that the matches you suggested there, I think a lot of those will be at All In, but then you've got to hold some stuff back for the following week for All Out. So, I mean, you can hold off on CM Punk and MJF until next year, I think, realistically, if you really want to. I think it's Punk and Ricky Starks All In. Maybe then you do Punk and MJF the following week. It's just such a weird situation where you've got two pay-per-views in the space of 1 week. The planning on that is absolutely atrocious. But yeah, the matches that you said, OC versus Mark, Orange Cassidy versus Jon Moxley, that seems on the table. I'm very much looking forward to that. You've got CMFTR versus Stronger Better Than You Baby, as in Roderick Strong, MJF, Adam Cole. That could be a match. Maybe you do that at All In, but I think you get Starks, and I really hope you get to see Ricky Starks at Wembley against CM Punk. That will put a big smile on my face. So yeah, it's the Jericho stories of the reports this week of him and Will Ospreay at All In. I think Ospreay will be there. It's just whether it's Ospreay versus Omega or whether it's Omega versus Takeshita, and then you maybe pair Ospreay off with Jericho. I'd like to see Ospreay and Omega 3 at Wembley. Obviously, Will Ospreay, Englishman, in London. I think that'd be great. But there's just it's weird. We're gonna get those matches. It's just whether it's which pay-per-view it's on, basically. Ashley's got in touch. Modern Legend. There's no legend here, Ashley, but thank you very much. I'm on a major WCW nostalgia trip recently. I am always happy to start WCW. How did you consume WCW back in the day, as it wasn't always the easiest to get a hold of in the UK? Tape sharing WCW Worldwide on Channel 5? Question. Well, let me talk to you. WCW, see, smile on my face. One of my favorite periods in professional wrestling history. It's not the NWO days of WCW. It's the early 90s of WCW. Just brilliant stuff. Sting on top as the white hot energetic babyface. Vader had just come in at that point as just the monster. Cactus Jack used to scare the bejesus out of me. Ron Simmons, Davey Boy Smith went there for a spell. The Steiners. There was a lot. There was Harlem Heat. There was Jusha Thunder Liger pop in. Brian Pillman, the Hollywood Blondes, the Dangerous Alliance, Ravishing Rick Rude. Holy moly, there's a lot of goodness there. There's a whole lot of goodness, and that's just scraping the surface. Even like Marcus Alexander Bagwell at the time, it's like, ooh, this guy's promising. Obviously, Buff Bagwell, not the biggest fan, but at the time, a 2 Code Scorpio. Yeah, there was a lot to love. So with me personally, I used to have this weird routine where WCW initially in the early 90s was on here in the UK on ITV, Channel 3. And it used to air, I'm trying to think whether it was technically Monday morning or if it was technically Tuesday morning, but it'd air at like 4 a.m. sort of thing, something daft like that. After Prisoner Cell Block H, there's a shout out. And I'd set an alarm, young me would set an alarm to go downstairs and to, because this is a time when you couldn't even, show my age, you couldn't even set like record on a VCR. You had to manually press record. So I'd go downstairs at the silly hours in the morning and record it, and it'd be great. And then they started showing it on Saturdays as well. So I used to watch it on ITV then. Then you mentioned there it moved to Channel 5 a bit later on. So there was that. And then in the early, very, very early days of the internet, there was a little bit of not tape trading, just tape buying, where I can't remember the fella's name. But it was literally the really early days where our phone line was with BT, and as part of that, the internet was with BT, and you got a BT email address. And there was somebody, I saw it was advertised in the Wrestling Magazine, just email them, and they would compile tapes of matches for you. And I'd get a lot of stuff with that as well. Not necessarily WCW, but just matches generally, anything I could get my hand on that I'd heard things about, or talent I'd heard things about. Or it's a good time, man. This has been the Soul Son News, myself, Andrew Pollard, here at What Culture Wrestling. Give us a follow at What Culture WWE on the Twitter. I hope you're having the best possible day. I will be gone now and do my ups and downs for Collision, which is a very good show. And I'll see you not next weekend. I've got next weekend off. I realize it's SummerSlam weekend, but I'll see you at some point. Unless I get fired before then. Who knows?